Hey guys, Carmine here. Quick reminder from the last video, I've finally opened up channel memberships on my channel, and I'm currently uploading all previous Patreon exclusive content to memberships. This includes the infamous episode 12 of the podcast where we discuss Preston's drama and his channel almost being taken down. So if you're down to support the channel or the podcast, then consider signing up for the channel membership. It's only $1, and you get all exclusive videos, a custom badge next to your name in my comment section, and custom emojis next time we live stream. If you'd like to support the channel or podcast and want a bit more perks for it, check us out on Patreon. I'll leave more info in the description below and the pinned comment as well. Thanks for your time and enjoy. I actually wanted to ask you about Littlefinger, my favorite character. One of my favorite chapters in the Game of Thrones, which is my favorite book, is the chapter where it's Ned 13. He goes and the king requests him, and Robert is dying. And I love the first thing Robert says to Ned. He goes, "Haha, fuck you, Ned." I just love the character of Robert Baratheon. But
Yeah.
after the whole meeting with the king and uh, Ned writing down the heir and all that, he goes and he has a meeting with Littlefinger. And Littlefinger says something interesting. His plan is go with Joffrey for now, and if Joffrey poses a threat later, they can depose him for Renly, but not Stannis. Stannis is the true bad guy here. The whole conversation doesn't make it 100% into the show, but
Yeah.
Littlefinger goes into detail as to why Stannis is a problem. Basically, the reason for this is that if Stannis takes the throne, not only would he behead Cersei and her children, or imprison them, or exile them. Mostly, I think imprison them. I don't think Stannis would kill children, but he'd likely behead Cersei.
Yeah.
Despite whatever he does, Tywin Lannister won't sit idly by. The Westerlands would be down his throat. But Littlefinger also theorizes that Stannis would cause trouble with Balon Greyjoy and
Mm.
the Tyrells and Red Wines.
Yeah.
So,
Because they made him starve, and that he would hold a grudge against them.
mm-hmm. Is his theory about Stannis here correct? Would Stannis actually go out of his way to cause trouble and punish people for crimes they committed against him years ago? Is this the character that Stannis is supposed to be?
That's an interesting question because I would say that Stannis is a somewhat inconsistent character, but it's a function of the point of view that views him. When you see Davos, Stannis is a very different character than when we see Crescent see him, or when Jon sees him, or when Asha sees him, or when Theon sees him. He's drastically different each time. And so there's a lot of different opinions about Stannis. That he's hard and he's not flexible and things like that. And it's like, well, actually, he ends up being one of the most flexible characters in the entire book. They're like, oh, he only has one way, and it's not true at all. Like, Stannis changes and reinvents himself constantly. And so he's an enigma. I think it's one of the reasons people really like him is because they choose the Stannis to like. They choose a particular chapter and they say, oh, that's the Stannis I like, But there's a lot of Stannises to choose from. So would Stannis hold a grudge against Mace Tyrell and Paxter Redwine for the siege? He would have to see a crime. There would have to be, I mean, the basic answer is there a crime that Mace Tyrell and Paxter Redwine committed? I mean, they were following their king, yes? Like, they're not really guilty of that. He probably sees them as wimpy, but is there anything illegal about surrounding Storm's End and trying to starve them out? It was a good strategy, and it nearly worked if it wasn't for Davos smuggling in the onions so I think that aspect of it is wrong. That no, like, he probably would have let Mace Tyrell and Paxter Redwine live. Now, would Mace Tyrell and Paxter Redwine get along with Stannis? They would probably fear retribution, even though Stannis might not actually have any retribution to have against them. I don't know.
And this is why it's hard for Ned and the audience, even now, to tell if Littlefinger is lying or not. Because Stannis isn't dumb, but he
Yeah.
would be if he picked a fight with two families that control the largest fleets in Westeros, the Red Wine and the Greyjoys. Not to mention, the Tyrells won't sit by and let this happen either, and they'll likely
Yeah.
depose him for Renly. And on top of all this, the Lannisters and their bannermen will move against him for sure. But Stannis is Littlefinger's main target in all of this. That much is clear. If his plan is to succeed, it's to remove Stannis completely no matter what, because he knows Stannis would remake the Small Council and remove Cersei, who's also part of his plan. In one of the Elaine chapters in Feast for Crows, he comments on how Cersei is bringing, like, ruin upon herself and the realm a bit faster than he anticipated, and obviously, once again, it's much easier to maneuver around Cersei than it is for Stannis. So Stannis is his public enemy number one. The guy is way too insane. I mean, right now he's traversing a frozen hellhole because he wants the Starks and the North in general on his side.
Right. Stannis, he rewards loyalty, um, almost to a fault, right? I mean, he learns later to shift things around and change. But that's very into it. That's the evolution of his character into a Dance with Dragons. And then some people say, well, maybe that's a whole bunch of bullshit. Stannis isn't really this big follower of the Lord of Light, and yet he has this priest around for some reason. Why? And so later on he appeases all of these Northerners, and is trying to have them get along with his Lord of Light followers, and he needs to change things around. He needs to change things up. When he arrives at the wall, he kind of is sitting there expecting that everyone come to him, because they're supposed to be loyal to their king. And then he kind of realizes that, no, I've got to do something to earn their loyalty. And that's a big shift and change in his character, because, he is an evolving character. So I guess it's, at what point, are you finding Stannis, and at what point would he be flexible? He's not that bright, and in the Game of Thrones, Clash of King era, you know. A Clash of Kings opens with Cresson giving Stannis a lot of really great advice, and then he kind of all rejects it. And part of the reason he rejects it is Selyse, but Cresson gives him a whole bunch of really great options, and he just kind of says, nah. He says whoa, why don't you team up with Robb Stark? No. That guy's a rebel. It's okay, why don't you marry Sweet Robin to Shireen and have an alliance with, Lysa Tully? And then, it's no. All these really great ideas. And he's no. So, I don't know. Would he be able to deal with Mace Tyrell and Paxter Redwine?
No, there's no way.
I think Game of Thrones Clash of Kings Stannis, no. Dance with Dragons Stannis, I think Dance with Dragons Stannis would be more savvy.
Well, right now Stannis has to contend with Winter, because I think that's what will ultimately destroy him is Winter. Because once again, I'm the last book I read, Dance with Dragons, I haven't read it in quite some time. But what I do remember is the fact that I think he leaves Deepwood Mott with 800 horses, and he arrives outside the village, outside Winterfell, with 60-something horses. His people are severely depleted in morale and food and everything. They fish that river dry.
Yeah.
He's on his last legs. Honestly, I think 10 good men would really destroy the fuck out of him. I truly believe that. I don't think he'd get desperate enough to do that, but Stannis taking Winterfell would be very bad for Littlefinger. But he also has a plan regarding the three queens. In that same chapter I spoke to you about, he mentions the three queens, which Cersei, Margaery, and is it safe to say he knows about Daenerys?
I would argue that he does know about Daenerys, but only because I think Penny is his agent. That's my theory. and that he wants to send somebody out. But I mean, he would be a pretty bad spy if he didn't know about Daenerys at this point, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, doesn't everybody know about Daenerys?
Yeah, but he mentioned the three queens. Who could the third queen be? There's no way he can mean it's Sansa.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of possibilities. There's, you know, Ariana Martell, Sansa. Um,
Ariana Martell is a princess, though.
sure, but maybe under Dornish law she'd be considered a queen. You know,
But she has no claim.
I mean, I mean, I guess until her father is dead, but
Then she would still be a princess.
um, that's true. Unless he thinks that Doran is going to die soon.
Could the third queen possibly be Selyse, who's not really a queen, kinda, not really?
I mean, that's an interesting idea as well. That, or if Stannis is dead, Shireen is the queen,
True.
and so your three queens could be Shireen, um, if he's believing, that Stannis is a goner.
Well,
But
since Feast and Dance run concurrently, it's likely that Littlefinger knows that Stannis is having a hard time up north,
hmm,
considering he usually has two spies everywhere. And if by some miracle Stannis manages to defeat the Boltons, the Northern Allies would likely abandon him to go over to Sansa's side once Littlefinger's plan comes into fruition, which is to reveal her identity during her marriage to Harry the Heir.
but he needs to believe that if we're taking information from the show and things like this, if he really believes that um, that the Vale could take on the North, he would need the Bolton forces, decimated by Stannis to some degree, right? The Vale forces are the Vale forces strong enough to take the Boltons on their home turf, and retake the North from them? I don't know. Like, you have to sail them over to get around Deepwood Motte. There's no way they could get around Deepwood Motte. But let's say you sail them up into White Harbor, and then from White Harbor you try to march on Winterfell. I don't know. And then on the Dreadfort, I think you'd need another force to destroy the Boltons or bring them down before you'd even think about the Vale Lords taking them on. So I guess he has to think that Stannis has some chance. you know.
But what's
Um,
his plan right now with Sansa? He wants to marry Sansa to Harry the Heir. Um,
his announced plan,
yeah,
his announced plan, which may be his real plan or not. His announced plan is that he is going to betroth Elaine to Harry the Heir.
and then on her wedding day, announce that she's really Sansa Stark.
That she's really Sansa Stark, and that everyone will be like, "Oh, cool," and then Sweet Robin will die. Harry will become Lord of the Vale, and Sansa will be, Queen of the North at the same time, and there'll be this, need for the Vale to take the kingdom of their queen. Something like that.
Huh. That's a lot of what ifs. Like, why does
Oh,
he automatically assume the Vale will want to fight the North, especially during winter?
there's so many things that don't make sense about it, and the primary thing that doesn't make sense: Sansa's married.
But she didn't consummate the marriage, which can be
doesn't
proven.
doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if she didn't consummate the marriage. That only means that you need the High Septon to dissolve it.
Hmm.
They're not going to get the High Septon to dissolve the marriage. Why would any High Septon dissolve the marriage of Sansa Stark, a woman who is suspected of killing the king? Like, even if you're not fans of Joffrey, even if you were, a Stannis supporter or a Dornish or whatever, would you, and Sansa came forward and said, I murdered the king. Dissolve my marriage so I can get married to the Lord of the King of the Vale, who now has an independence movement, or the Lord of, none of it makes sense. Like, no High Septon would ever dissolve that marriage. Like, why? Certainly not
That's true.
certainly not the High Sparrow. So, yeah, you got to kill Tyrion. So how do you kill Tyrion? Well, you need an assassin. And so who's a mummer who was once hired by Littlefinger? Penny. So she tried to kill him once, and now she's following him. And but yeah, she was hired by Littlefinger in the first place to be at that wedding, and then and now she's following Tyrion. She's the only person near Tyrion that could possibly do a hit. Otherwise, what would Peter Baelish be waiting for? I mean, Tyrion could be exiled for literally the rest of his life, and then Sansa would never be able to get married to anyone. So Tyrion needs to be killed. The only person that can kill Tyrion is Jorah. Or Penny, right? And Penny was specifically hired by Littlefinger before. Why wouldn't he call up his ex mummer and try to get this done?
Your favorite character is Sweet Robin because, in your point of view, the characters who are mostly looking like they're on death's door are usually the ones that survive, and the ones that are completely healthy and okay are usually the one that dies faster.
Yeah.
Because Sweet Robin always feels like he's about to just keel over and die. You think Sweet Robin's gonna survive everybody? He's gonna outlast everyone in the series.
Yes. And if the show is any evidence of this. So, he does. He makes it to the end, alive and well.
Alive and well. And with Bronzion Royce, who somehow survived the long night. So what I'm expecting to happen is something's going to happen to Harry the Heir. And
Yeah.
that's going to fuck up Littlefinger's plans.
And I have a long theory about this as well. I did an analysis of the Elaine chapters in the Prepping for Winter series. But yeah, there's a jousting tournament, and
Things can happen.
Harry the Heir is not ready to be a knight. They specifically say he was not ready to be a knight. They called him an up-jumped squire. Bronzion made him a knight, even though he wasn't ready. So Harry the Heir is about to enter a tournament against people that are much better jousters. He had no business being in that tourney. Now, if you remember, if we go to another different up-jumped squire who participated in a tourney from the Vale.
The guy that Eddard talks to, who was John Arryn's squire.
Sir Hugh. Sir Hugh was an up-jumped squire and got put into a tourney and died because he wasn't ready. He was killed by the mountain.
Mm-hmm.
And now, Varys lies and tries to claim that the mountain killed him because he knew too much, but that's all bullshit. It turns out Sir Hugh was just put in a. It's possible that Littlefinger rearranged the lists and put Sir Hugh against the mountain. But the point is, when you have a guy who's not that skilled in a competition with, cutthroat men who are very skilled, it's dangerous. Jousting is fucking dangerous. And we're about to put Harry the Heir into a dangerous situation when he's not that skilled. And so, yeah, I think Harry the Heir is going to get killed in the tourney.
Well, it's like the other famous George once said. It's like poetry, it rhymes, right? In the first book, we have Sir Hugh, another up-jumped squire from the Vale, getting destroyed during a tourney much like this one. But Littlefinger wants Sansa to maneuver Harry the Heir, but I think she can do that already with Sweet Robin just fine. He is the Lord of the Vale, but what kind of annoys me is, even in the Elaine chapters, nobody really takes Sweet Robin seriously. So I don't see how, well, unless she kind of speaks for him, and she has more authority than he does, even though he's the Lord of the Vale. But even his own retainers don't even take him seriously and just ignore him.
And there's a very interesting other thing to think about, that as Elaine as a character has inheritance and rights to things as well. Like, Littlefinger is Lord of Harrenhal, which means, and he doesn't have any children that we know of, which means that like Elaine, could be the heir to Harrenhal, which is, and the head of the Riverlands.
Also
So
in Feast for Crows, Jamie repeats that when forgot which one of the phrase. There's like 3,000 of them. One of
yeah,
the phrase says, "I'm the Lord of Riverrun," blah 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 blah, and then Jamie corrects him and says, "Yes, but you answered to Peter Baelish, who's the
right.
Lord Paramount of the Trident."
That's correct. Yeah.
So, yeah, this is see, I love Littlefinger. He's such a great character. I love the part in the chapter before that where he makes I think it's Nestor Royce Lord of the Gates of the Moon,
Yes.
and he signs it himself, which makes Nestor have to kind of back him up just in case, because if Littlefinger's removed, then that means his signature is called in question, and Nestor Royce loses his position. I love like those moves like that.
Yeah, though I would argue that Nestor Royce is no dummy.
He's
I
no
mean,
dummy, especially his daughter. Don't you have an
yeah.
entire video where she kind of quizzes Sansa as they're
Oh
coming
yeah.
down the mountain, where she
Miranda Royce knows what's up. She knows that
yeah.
Sansa is Sansa.
By
They
the
know
way,
that.
there's a new High Septon, and did you know Jon Snow is the new Lord Commander?
Jon Snow. Oh, Sansa, you just gave it away.
Poor Sansa.
So stupid. So stupid.
Poor Sansa. Um, no, but and you have also another theory that also in Feast, we're mentioning Feast a lot today. Also in Feast,
Great book.
Littlefinger, huh?
Great book.
Also in Feast, Littlefinger is asking Cersei for tapestries, and
Yeah.
he wants to supposedly hang them all over the place to kind of prove that Robert and Robert's children aren't really his.
Well, I mean, it's a big mystery. This is another when we talk about like um, gardening. The tapestries are this weird thing that keeps popping up over and over. The tapestries are from Game of Thrones. They were taken off the wall. They showed scenes of Baratheons and Hunt or whatever. And then later on, Cersei boxes them up, takes them off the wall, or Joffrey boxes them up, takes them off the walls because they don't want them on the wall. Or I guess it was Cersei that did it. And then all of a sudden, Littlefinger's like, "Hey, can I have those tapestries?" And Cersei's like, "Fine, I don't give a shit." And she sends them to the Vale, and then they pop up in the Vale, and then he pops them on the wall, and he starts showing them off. And so you're like, "Well, what is he doing with these tapestries? Maybe they show what Baratheons look like, and maybe it has to do with Maya. Like Maya clearly looks like a Baratheon, so maybe it's to show that Tommen is a bastard after all, and this is evidence. Like, hey guys, look at these tapestries. All the Baratheons have dark hair, kind of like Maya, you know. So we'll see what happens.